Welcome back, folks, to the Reid Method Insider podcast. It's episode 36. And in episode 36, we are about to chat about what sets the top sales performers apart. Is that luck? Is that skill? Or is that mindset? My guest for this 36th episode makes his third appearance on the show and is very active in the automotive recruiting and training space across the United States. Anthony Santangelo has been in the automotive industry since 1997. He sold almost 3,500 cars, and in his career, he's ranked number one, or was ranked with the number 1%, top 1% nationally for outstanding customer service from 2012 to 2016. Anthony is currently a national recruiter and sales trainer for Automax Recruiting and Training. His passion, integrity, work ethic are second to none, which shows daily in his goal of positively affecting everyone he interacts with and become a better person. Anthony's committed to following his daily rituals, success rituals, which consist of learning, personal development, teaching, and helping others both personally and professionally. His most recent accomplishment, which is one of the reasons we're here tonight, is as co-author of the well-anticipated success and personal development book, 10X Mindset Habits. So welcome back to the show for a third time, Anthony.
Everyone, thank you so much. Again, it's a privilege and honor to be a guest on your show again for the third time out of 36 episodes. And I just really appreciate our friendship we've developed here over the past year or so.
Well, thank you very much. So we're going to dive right into this episode. I know it was anticipated when we spoke back sometime in the winter and the book was in the works. So we've seen some rapid growth and transformation for you within the last 3 years, from the automotive sales rep space when you were selling cars with Nissan, thousands of cars, by the way, to your current role as a sales recruiter and trainer with Automax, and now a published author, as you've co-authored the book, 10X Mindset Habits. So how did that come about?
How did this author part come about in your career?
Well, it's an interesting question there, Everett. One of the things in my career was I refused to go on Facebook, and I even called it Fake Book. And I was wrong, audience. I was absolutely wrong, and I stunted my growth. And I was successful, but I could have been more successful if I stepped out of my comfort zone and stopped being so stubborn. Well, as a national sales recruiter and trainer for Automax Recruiting and Training, the number one automotive recruiting company in the country, we all do Facebook. And I've been able to go on Facebook, and I go on Facebook Live 3 to 5 times a week, and I share with my audience different things. Well, as I started doing this past July, a gentleman, his name is Marcos Orozco, who he owns bookfamous.com. He had approached me via social media and said, I've been following your post on Facebook, and I want to put together a book collaboration titled 10X Mindset Habits, and I want fellow 10Xers that are followers of Grant Cardone to be an author in the book. And he said, would you like to write a chapter in the book? And I said to him, I was like, oh, me? Really? To be able to write a chapter in a book, I never really thought about that before. And I gave it some thought, and I called him back less than 24 hours later, and I said, absolutely, I'll be honored to do this. And he said, you'll be one of 10 authors. I'm going to write a chapter as well, Ant. You'll write one, and I'm going to have 8 other people, your fellow 10Xers, write a chapter. Marcos and I are the only 2 that have an automotive background. The other 8 are entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and one is in the roofing industry as well on it. So, but that's kind of how it started, the power of social media. So there's a perfect example. I would not be having this third podcast talking about my book here, and I'll just show it to you on Facebook Nation. Here it is. 10X Mindset Habits.
There it is.
I wouldn't have that if I didn't step out of my comfort zone and get on Facebook and social media, because Marcos never would have met me. And why I'm on the topic, you and I never would have met if it wasn't for my Twitter account as well. And that's how you discovered me and asked me to be a guest on your podcast. Actually, a year ago this month was our first one that we did, you and I.
See, you looked it up. That's good.
Well, I knew it off the top of my head, actually. I'd have to look it up. Episode 9 was the first you and I did.
That's certainly better than me. I would have had to look it up.
Well, I always say I love math, but I hate algebra. I don't like the unknown,
So why did you choose to participate and share your perspective on the impact of having the right mindset?
Well, one of the things in my career was, when my head was screwed on straight, in my opinion, there was no one better than me. I was able to earn customers for life, do the right thing. I was very privileged and honored to be ranked in the top 1% in the country with Nissan North America for CSI the last 5 years that I sold in the trench. But when my head was up then I was a worse person in the world. I was worse than a rookie salesperson. And it doesn't matter about talent. And I don't believe in luck. I'm a poker player, as you know, Everald, and I don't believe in luck at all. I think everyone eventually gets dealt the same amount of hands and the same type of cards. So it's a matter of overcoming that and not going off of talent and what you learn and all that. It's a matter of, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe that, yes, I can do this? Do you believe that, yes, I'm going to overcome the naysayers? Because we all hear the same negative noise, as Tim Grover says, but it's a matter, are we going to change the tune or not? And we need to change the tune. And that's what you have to do. And when you do that, you have the right mindset. Now you can go out there and achieve success in anything you do, in the automotive industry, in the real estate industry, jewelry, insurance, whatever it may be. We're all in sales. Even people at McDonald's are in sales. So everyone's in sales. And if you have the right mindset and attitude, then now it's going to flow to the customers. The customers are going to see your body language, your tonality, your spirit. And that's how you're going to earn customers for life and be successful.
So in the book, you spoke about, and I had to read your I read your chapter today, and oh my goodness. Number one, I learned a lot about you, and it was very, very powerful. So, which makes for a good episode tonight. You speak about the perception of seeing successful people on TV or online and not really knowing how their successes came about, and the assumption that they must have had luck or fell into riches or whatever. Why did you think it was important to make that statement in the book?
Well, that's how I started my chapter out. Every success story that you watch on TV or read about online, it all started with that person being given an opportunity and they chose to capitalize on it. Now, I think a lot of people in this world, first of all, everyone is presented an opportunity. Everyone's been presented an opportunity in life, whatever it may be. The question is, they choose to capitalize on it. I think a lot of people turn away from opportunities and give up on them because they feel they don't have the right upbringing, because they weren't raised the right way. They didn't have a silver spoon in their mouth. They didn't have the right last name and the right nationality. And that's all a bunch of baloney. I don't believe in that whatsoever. You can be given an opportunity and you choose to capitalize on it and you take it and you run with it. And it doesn't matter about what happened in the past. As I told in my training class today, right now I'm in Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm back at a Hagerstown Ford, the second time I've been here. Great organization, great management. And I taught my training class today, the first day of training. I'm going to graduate them tomorrow and get them hired at Hagerstown Ford, is you can't live backwards. You can't be sitting there dwelling on past results. And if you really think about it, audience, that when we get upset, when we get angry, we get depressed, when we get resentful, it's because we're living freaking backwards. And you can't do that. And that's what people end up doing. They live backwards and say, well, I did this, this, and this, or I didn't do this, this, and this, or I grew up this way or that way, so I can't and I won't. And that's a bunch of nonsense. And that's why I started my chapter that way, that obviously it's everyone's given an opportunity, but are you going to have enough courage and have the guts to capitalize on that? And the only person that can stop you from doing that is the person that you look in the morning when you brush your teeth.
There you go. Your parents played an integral role in your success today, laying a foundation for you. So were there any specific lessons that you learned through that whole process and the time with your parents?
Yes, very much so. My mom, Donna, my mom passed away at 40 years old. She died of breast cancer. The technology was not as advanced back then, but she was diagnosed in 1984, had surgery. It came back in 88. In 84, I was 7 years old. It came back in 88. She had surgery again. And then in 92, it had come back. It had spread to her leg. And those next 2 years, I would not be showing my worst to me. And she died in 1994. I was 17. My sister Lori was 13, and my sister Joanne was a few weeks away from turning 11. And before she passed away, obviously her passing when I was 17 versus 7, when she initially was diagnosed with breast cancer, was a pretty big difference there. And back then, my mom, the devout Christian that she would give me a lot of lectures. And boy, I received them, as at the time we were living in Broomall, Pennsylvania, and driving a half hour to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania for school, the school I had went to. And she would really come down on me about different things, about, doing things the right way and being obedient and different things. And at the end, all I knew at the time was I just knew I shouldn't be making excuses. I didn't see how those different things that she was telling me back then, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. What moves the heart wags the tongue. Different things that she would say. I had no idea how they were going to end up developing in my life as an adult with it. And she always ended those things, Anthony, I love you, and God has a plan for you, all those things. I just felt beat up afterwards, But she kind of taught me those lessons, and now I talk about her in my training classes. I bring a little Donna Santangelo into training class about it's not what you say, it's how you say it. What moves the heart wags the tongue. So that was like that. Now, my dad, Tony, he likes to call me Sonny, and my dad still to this day, he calls me Sonny. That's what he calls me. He was a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning person, and then he moved into open and close the swimming pools, and he still opens and closes the occasional swimming pool here and there as he kind of goes back and forth between Florida and Pennsylvania. When my dad taught me when I was 7 years old, he used to say, Sonny, if you're going to do a job, do it right or don't do it at all. And I always remembered that growing up, and I kind of focused on that as I went through school, and I was a very average student, which is what we call Automax Recruiting and Training, best of the worst, and that's kind of how I was with it. And but I did always do my homework all the time. I worked hard. I played sports. I was huge into sports, playing baseball, football, basketball, street hockey. But I loved that, and I kind of moved into that. Well, I took that work ethic and I kind of moved that into my first career, which was construction. Now, I went to the construction field with my childhood friend, Jameson Glennon. And Jameson and I have known each other since we were 5 years old. We're 3 days apart in age. He's 3 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. And we went to construction, and I failed. And I failed miserably. My heart was there, Everald, but the speed wasn't. Well, Jameson owns a construction company now and several real estate investments. So obviously, it worked out for him. Mm-hmm. So I moved into that in that field. And I failed at that. And then I was given an opportunity by the church I had grown up in to sell at flea markets. And I never experienced sales before. At this point, I was 19 years old. And I had an opportunity to sell cushions and redwood furniture and fireworks and Christmas trees in flea markets across Pennsylvania. So I would load up a white Iveco box truck and travel up to 2.5 hours away, up early in the morning, and I started selling. And I started learning a little bit what sales meant back then. Mm-hmm. And I learned, obviously, a little bit about negotiation, getting beat up on the price at the flea market, knowing that cash was important because there was no square card readers back then, and checks. I took a few checks and learned the hard way that they weren't real. So but I ended up going through that. But the problem with flea markets, Everald, as it would be in Canada as well, mm-hmm. You can't do them year-round because nobody in January and February coming to buy things at flea markets, are they?
Not unless you're brave like some of the folks here in Toronto.
Right. It's a little bit tough to obviously have
a little tougher. Absolutely.
Yeah, a little bit tougher to do that. Yeah, so, absolutely. Well, it was August of 1997. I finished up a pretty successful fireworks season there, and it was the second week in August, and Jameson's parents, Pat and Joan Glennon, that I've known again since I was 5 years old, they had a trailer down in Delaware. And they said to me, Anthony, why don't you come down for the day, take the day off. I was working 7 days a week back then. Jameson's working, but come down and spend a day with us, please. And I said, okay, I will. So I was walking the beach with Pat, and I said to Pat, what do you think I should do? Now, I can probably squeeze a couple more weeks of flea market sales in. But come Labor Day, all the kids will be back at school, and now I'm going to have a little bit of a slow time until Christmas trees start up Thanksgiving weekend. So I got a couple months here. What do you think I should do? And he said to me, why don't you sell cars? And I started laughing at him. Mm-hmm. And he said, what's so funny? And I said, well, those guys are scumbags. And he stopped me on the beach, and we were side by side, Pat and I. And he grabbed my arm, and he twisted my body to his. And he looked at me. He said, if those guys are like that, how much better would you be? Wow. Now, my favorite actor, one of my favorite actors is Tom Selleck. And I love the show Blue Bloods. And I love Magnum P.I., obviously. I'm sure you remember that, ever, Magnum P.I.
Of course.
Well,
yeah.
Tom Selleck is known for his mustache, but he's also known when he says something wise and smart. And, of course, the people on iTunes won't be able to see this, but on camera here, he kind of has that smile that he does there with it. Well, Pat does the same thing when he says something very wise and smart, just minus the mustache. So he's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I'm 20 years old. Here's a guy I've known since I was 5 years old that I used to call Uncle Pat and Aunt Joan, his wife Joan. And he's smiling at me, and I said, okay, I'll take you up on your offer. Well, off I went, circling ads in the Philadelphia Inquirer, because there was no Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Craigslist and Facebook and all different things back then, and I was calling dealerships. Well, as I talk about in the interview process, most car dealers are looking for an experienced car salesperson. Well, I started feeling the rejection. And I interviewed somewhere between 12 to 15 car dealerships I had went to, and 11 to 14 times I was told, sorry, kid, you're too young. No experience, no job. We'll call you. Don't call us. We'll let you know. Why don't you go to college? And it was rejection after rejection after rejection. And then I ran into Devin Nissan, and I met Terry Biaggi, the Biage. And Terry interviewed me. He liked me. He told me to come back later and meet with Joe Bush, who was the owner of Devin Nissan. I came back. Joey was busy. I met with Jeff Marcus, and they said, we'll call you 9 o'clock that night. A long story short, I called them at 8:58 because I was chomping at the bits, sweating on the inside. And Jeff eventually picked up and said, you start Monday. And that's how I started in the car industry.
Well, there you go. And we started at similar ages. I started 19, 18 and a half, turning 19. You started when you were 20.
Yep.
Good. So I saw a quote in your book where you said you remember that time frame in your life when the favorite part of your day was sleeping.
Yes.
And because it took away a lot of the pain of losing your mom at the time. And, maybe you needed some direction and whatever, and you were grinding it through the construction business. But, your most comfortable time was when you were asleep. So how did you make the transition? You've shared with the audience already losing your mom and with, growing up with your sisters and with your two sisters and your dad. And then, sleeping was your therapy, so to speak, through that time. So how did you adjust from that mindset into, your pathway to success, so to speak?
Well, there was a couple things there. As I basically was watching my mom die right in front of me as she was having seizures and the hospice care, and all those things there, there was a lot of thoughts in my head. And I played football back then, and I felt like the only way that I could really let out my frustration was just to hit the living stuffing out of the person on the other side of the ball. And I love to hit hard. I used to tell the other team, if I catch you, you're going to feel it. I wasn't fast, but I hit hard. And that's where I went through that and kind of tried to almost push my problems onto that halfback or wide receiver is what I was trying to do. And then as I moved into construction, I was failing at it. And to get back to your point there, Everald, those 7 hours I would sleep from 11 to 6 in the morning, 11 at night to 6 in the morning, I was like, man, I'm so relaxed. And then I got up at 6 o'clock and I had this pit and this knot in my stomach because I was failing. I was struggling. And, as a teenager, I battled some suicidal thoughts. I did. And now here I was at 18, 19 years old in the construction, and I saw my good friend Jameson excelling, which, by the way, Jameson actually was the one that told me my mom died. I did not have my driver's license at the time. I was at my dad's shop cleaning up and my permit, and there was a knock on the door, and it was J-Mo. J-Mo's his nickname. And I was like, what are you doing here, dude? He said, we have to come with me. And I said, why? He said, well, your mom died. So he's actually the one that told me my mom died, which might sound kind of odd to the audience there. You know, how would a non-family member know this before you? Can I tell you something? I wouldn't have it any other way. I've known JMO now for 36 years. We talked. We actually had dinner together 3 weeks ago. And it's tough to get, he owns a company, so it's tough to get him alone to do things. He's married with 3 wonderful children. But we were able to spend time together right before our birthdays, which was cool. And the way I really overcame that was really the month before my mom died, I was out at the Grand Canyon. And we went on a hiking trip. And I remember saying to myself out in that tent, you know, God, if you're real, you got to bring a peace here. So I know my mom's going to die at some point. And I need to be able to figure this out. And I had a peace when she passed, but that was fine for me. So as my sisters, you know, Lori would try to clean the house and try to take over. Joanne would bury her head in books. And that's how she dealt with the pain. My dad, well, Tony kind of went off the deep end a little bit, but I understand he lost his wife, and I get that, you know, with it. And he went through that. Well, I was able to heal from that, but then moving into the construction field, that hurt started coming back again, and that suicidal thoughts came back again. And the way I overcame that was really by mindset. I had to make a personal decision and a mental commitment to say, you know what? Okay, I was dealt a couple bad hands in life. So what? What are you going to do now? And I didn't know at the time, but this was 1996, the year before I got in the car industry. But little did I know, 5 years later, I wrote a quote, you can't change the past, only do what's right in the present to make a better future. And that's what I started doing. I started focusing on the present to make my future better. Who cares what happened in the background, in the past there? And that goes for everybody out there that's listening on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or on Facebook Live here. You know, who cares if you had a mistake in the past, if you had a divorce, you had a broken engagement, you weren't the best parent to your kids, you got fired from a job, maybe you had a DUI, maybe you were arrested. You know, there's some celebrities out there that have a record, but they've overcame that, you know, and that's what you have to do. And that's really where the mindset comes in. It's not that luck or skill type of thing.
Well, that's well said. So we've gone through life's setbacks, your mom's passing, you know, the dating issues, the job search, the career path, you know, the suicidal thoughts, failed construction career, etc. But obviously, you're here today with tremendous success years later, all because of this mindset. And as your chapter in the book says, is it luck, skill, or mindset? So, you know, how would you categorize it from your perspective? You know, it wasn't luck, or you can consider. Some people can say, "Well, I'm lucky to have gone through the experiences," you know, but I'm not sure for you if it would be, and it certainly wouldn't be skill. But you've had to deal with a lot of adversity. And it certainly took having the right mindset and mentorship and friends. It sounds like you had some good friends that supported you. And I know in your book you mentioned the managers, some of the managers at the Nissan dealer who really held you up and paid for counseling or something one time to help you out, to make sure, because they cared about you. So this tells a lot, even though you've been through all this adversity, that the right mindset and the right attitude clearly resonated with other folks, that they stepped out to uplift you and to help you. So you never know how this will affect you, but clearly having the right mindset and a positive outlook, even through the adversity, came full circle to your success today.
Yes, absolutely. And I give my mentors a ton of credit from where I'm at today. You know, I had the best management staff that I started out with in my career. Brian Anderson, Terry Biaggi, Lee Timberman, Jeff Marcus, Joe Bush, and the late George Du Bois, who I miss dearly, my mentor. March 23rd will be 5 years that he has been gone, unfortunately. I miss him so much. And, you know, back in 2001, I was 4 years into the car industry. And actually, to go back a little bit, in 2000, In 1998, I met a girl, and we started dating. And in October of 2000, I proposed. And here I was, 3 years in the car business. I was a top gun at Devin Nissan. I was well on my way to making 6 figures plus a year. And in March of 2001, so obviously, technically 17 years ago this week, ever thinking about looking here at March 8th with it. It was the second week in March, and 17 years ago, my world came crashing down. Mm-hmm. And my fiance ended the relationship. And I love that girl. It did. And it hurt. It hurt like freaking hell. It did. And my numbers started to drop. Well, my direct manager at the time, his name is Reid Timmerman. And Lee now actually is an owner of an Infinity dealership. He owns Infinity of Westchester in Pennsylvania, which is about 10 minutes from my house. Mm-hmm. And he pulled me out of training one day. And now I'm 3.5 years in the car industry. And he said to me, he goes, Anthony, I need you to sell cars. I do. Your numbers are dropping. But more importantly, I know that you loved that girl so much. What can I do to help? What can I do to help you here again? And I said, Lee, thank you, buddy. Your support really means a lot to me. I'm going through a hard time. And here was the difference. And I'm hoping sales managers and general managers are really listening to dealer principles here. Reid Timmerman and the rest of the management staff there, Jeff, Terry, Brian, and George and Joey, they didn't just care about Anthony Santangelo, the car salesman that sold cars at Devin Nissan. They cared about Anthony Santangelo, the person. Mm-hmm. And we had a client back then who was a psychologist. And they said, well, we're going to send you to him. We're going to pay for it. And I talked to him and was able to work through some things here. But the thing I'll always remember about that management staff is that they cared about me as a person. And my numbers were dropping. And yes, I had to make them money. And yes, I had to make money myself. But they were sensitive to it. And they didn't let the struggles and the frustrations and the pressure of the manufacturer having to put out units take over the person.
So they didn't give up on you.
They didn't give up on me. Yeah. I mean, they didn't give up on me, and I didn't give up on myself ever. But you know what? If they gave up on me and they started browbeating me, didn't figure out what made me tick as a person, maybe I wouldn't be a national sales recruiter or trainer. I know I sure as hell wouldn't have sold 3,500 cars in my career, and that's why I always will appreciate so much what they did for me. And they're aware of this. They're aware of my book. They know I talk about him in there. And I want to throw Chuck DeSantis in there as well, who was the senior salesperson at Devin Nissan. Chuck DeSantis now is the general manager of Concordville Nissan with it. And I want to throw my best friend in there, David Ginsburg. We both started with Nissan together in 1997. He now works at Wilkie Lexus, one of your competitors, but he's in Pennsylvania, so in Haverford, Pennsylvania, with it. And, their support was also very much appreciated.
So sometimes you have to drop back and putt. I like that phrase that I picked up in the book from, was it your friend George or was it a manager?
That was George, and guys, and anybody watching here, give some hearts and likes to George Du Bois. I'm sure people are watching that had the privilege and honor to know George. He left us way too early at 49 years old. And George always had a way of talking me off the ledge. Mm-hmm. And everyone, you've experienced this. You've been in the car business for all these years. It's the 10th of the month and you got 2 deals out. You're 0 for your last 5. Now what? As one of my favorite managers, Muhammad Laraki, would say. Well, George always had a way of saying, Aunt, they're grasping at straws. Don't worry about them making fun of you. Sometimes you got to drop back and punt. It's a marathon, not a race. And anytime I talked to George as he drove his 60-mile one-way commute back and forth from Bridgeton, New Jersey to Devon, Bridgeton to Exton, Pennsylvania, Bridgeton to Ardmore, Pennsylvania, for all these years, I would talk to him on the phone, and he always put me back together. And the next day, I either sold a car or cars, or at the very least, I set up 2 appointments because my head wasn't up my ass anymore. Yeah. That's what he did, and that's where I got there from. Putting this drop back and punt. He also said, which I forgot to put in the book, but the second edition will have it. You have to put the square peg in the round hole. He also said, And he would do this, and he was just a great closer of people. He understood what made people tick and was able to figure out a good way to earn a customer for life. And many times I watched him on TOs, and I've been able to have the honor of that. And the way I, share his memory is what I'm doing right now. I talk about George every week in my class.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing that in the book, because that phrase certainly caught my attention.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And it just, George is just was an awesome person, with that. And it's giving back. And his funeral, Everald, oh my goodness, there was people there, accounting personnel, service personnel, sales personnel, people that have not been in the corner street for over 10 years still went and paid their respects to this man. It was like a packed house in a little church in Bristol, New Jersey. And, awesome.
It's very important how you live. And we've been talking about, what sets the top sales performers apart, and top performers in general, and people with success. And is it luck, skill, or mindset? And we've gone through a whole life experience here in a journey with Anthony Santangelo on tonight's episode 36 of the Reid Method Insider podcast, discussing mindset and how having the right mindset and the right attitude and obviously support can help you towards ultimate success. And Anthony and most people, myself, we've had setbacks in life. We've lost close ones and loved ones, and have circumstances, be it at work or personal. But having that right mindset is certainly something that we need, especially in today's fast-moving world, folks. It's so important to do the right thing by people, to have colleagues and friends such as Anthony, genuine people that you can rely on, you can relate to, you can communicate with and share things with. So success. This show has always been about having the right mindset, personal development, making that a foundation of your success path, sales, tactics, strategies, successful business, entrepreneurs. So we bring, I'm sorry?
Authenticity, which is one of your favorite words.
Yeah, I love that word.
Yes, I know you do. That's why I said it. Can't leave that out.
yes, absolutely. We did a whole episode on.
Absolutely.
We have a lot more coming. And
so I want to thank you, Anthony, for this episode. I thought when I looked at the title of the book, as well as the chapter that you did on mindset, it was perfect. And how we integrated the realities of life, the setbacks, the mishaps, the grinding, the self-realization, everything all came out in this particular episode, and falling back to that big component of having the right mindset and the right attitude, and keeping that focus and being able to source out the influencers or the people that can, help to straighten you back to the right path. So thank you so much. And even though we had some technical issues, no issues here. I'm glad that we teed it up again in the third episode of the podcast. And any last words before we head out?
I think it's important that when we go through struggles in life, Everald, that we need our inner circle. As you guys have seen here on this episode, as I've talked, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have the support of good mentorship, good parents, and good friends. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times when the wheels are starting to turn at night, sometimes we feel like we're all alone. We don't have anybody. Well, I'm here to tell you, Facebook Nation, iCloud Nation, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever it's at, I'm here for you. You give me a call. I'm a little bit rare. I give my phone number out. I pick my phone up and I return my phone calls. My phone number is 267-784-9752. Need anything at all, you give me a call. Let me know. I don't care if I don't know you or not. I'll still help you. I just want to give back and serve to others, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for people that took the time to do this. And the best thing you can give to someone is not money. It's your time. Give them your time. and show them that you really care and that you're authentic and real. And when you do that, now at this point, you're going to be able to change someone's life. And I just want to tell you one quick story here, Everett. I had a young lady that I trained in Arizona last year. Mm-hmm. And as I was doing my one-on-one evaluations that day and letting them know who was hired, before I started, she said to me, she goes, Anthony, before you say anything, I just want you to know that 4 years ago, I found my mom on my birthday dead. Okay. And I heard you talk about your mom passing away and how you've developed closure on that. And she started to sob. She said, Anthony, you've helped me get closure on this with my life. And even if I'm not hired, I want you to know I was absolutely meant to be here and to meet you. And right. I said to that young lady, I said, well, thank you so much. And this young lady wasn't even born when my mom died. She wasn't born to the following year. She wasn't even alive when my mom died, Everett. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I said, well, that's what I'm here. I'm here to give. And by the way, congratulations, you're hired. Well, she reached out to me last month via email and told me she's doing very well. And she's not, and her exact words to me ever were, I'm not sad anymore, Anthony. You've developed a mindset for me. And now she's letting her talent of playing the piano and music kind of fill that void. And she's letting her love and expression play through the piano. And she's positively affecting lives. So I guess what I want to wrap up here is that you could be going through a difficult situation in life. Okay, you could be going through it right now, or maybe it happened in the past and you haven't developed closure on it. Now, if you have the right mindset and you learn, develop, grow, and teach through that, when you do that, you have no idea how in the future you're going to positively affect someone's life, but it might be 20-something years later. I didn't meet this girl until last November at a dealership in Arizona. So that was over 23 years after my mom died. But I was able to positively affect her life because I was able to overcome a hardship. So I want to encourage all you out there, overcome your hardships. And if you need help, I'm here to serve. And I know Errol will be very willing to hear from you as well and reach out. That's why him and I joined forces, because we have the same mindset, the same culture, and we just want to give back and help others.
I certainly appreciate that. And I just want to reach out to some folks while we're on the subject of giving back. Mountain View, California. Thank you so much. I see a whole bunch of folks listening from Mountain View, California, Thunder Bay, Ontario, St. Paul, Minnesota, many other places, lots of folks from the United Kingdom recently tuning in. Maybe you can help me with this one, Anthony. Piscataway, New Jersey. I've never heard of it, but there's tons of folks listening there, and in Texas. And I find it compelling to mention this because every week there's a whole section of folks from places that I've never heard of popping up with tons of folks listening and tuning in. So I want to say thank you very much. I see you. I appreciate it very much. Lahore, Pakistan. We have followers there. So thank you so much. And tonight, we had several people tune in to the show with you, Anthony. Dina Kelly, Tanasha Reid, several others. I can't see all their names right now.
I just pulled it up here, Errol. Our boy Sean Hayes.
Yes,
Sean Hayes, our guy, Beaver Toyota, St. Augustine. His partner, Dave Benson. One of my students there, Taquir Muhammad is one of my students. Laura Berman, who always gives me love and support. Dina Kelly, I love you, Dina. You're awesome, dear. Ryan Benson as well. And, a lot of other people. Matt here at Matt Slap Subaru. I'm sorry, Matt Slap Key, excuse me. With it, my good friend who started out as a customer, Karen Crandall. I sold her a car back in 1998, and we've been very close friends ever since then.
Wow.
With it. So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so thank you very much, folks, for tuning in and to this episode 36 of the Reid Method Insider podcast. Check us out on Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, and I would love to hear your feedback at insider@reidmethod.com. That's insider at thereidmethod.com. Send me an email. Be happy to respond. Let us know what you think about the show. Many other episodes. Check out episodes 30, 31 with Les Brown, the great Les Brown. Check out episodes, all you folks in the automotive sales world and in sales and business, check out the episodes 21, 23, 28 with Tom Hopkins. We had a couple episodes with Sean Hayes as well, the car guy. Check out those episodes. Lots of great stuff. And tonight, I want to thank Anthony once again for being on the show. As we wrap up episode 36, we were discussing what sets top sales performers apart. Anthony shared his life journey, including all the setbacks, all the challenges, and now full circle the successes, all as a result of having the right mindset and the right attitude and being an authentic guy. So until next episode, as I say for 2018 folks, be intentional. Everything that you do in life, do it right by others and be intentional. So thank you very much, Anthony, and we'll talk to you soon.
And as always, you know what I always say, go all in.
Go all in. All right, folks, get out there and kick butt. Everybody get back to work. Be intentional. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.